All right, so we cut to 3 months later. The blonde heroine, Stardust, is just chilling in a coffee shop, probably trying to have a normal day for once. Her handler calls, yelling that a villain has appeared. Stardust immediately gets hyped, asking if it's our boy Egostic. The handler is like, "Nah, it's some jobber named Rockbottom." You can just feel the disappointment. Stardust launches into the sky, but she's not even focused on the fight. She's just wondering what the hell Egostic has been up to for the last 3 months. We flip over to the Ego base, and what are they doing? Watching Stardust on a giant screen like it's the Super Bowl. Egostic is on his feet, pointing and yelling, "There she is!" While the hacker girl, Seo-eun, just sits there, completely unimpressed. The scene cuts back to the fight, and it's an absolute wash. This rock-bottom dude, who looks like a big rock monster, barely gets a word out before Stardust just flies in and one-shots him into a million pieces. She's not even breaking a sweat. Back at the base, Egostic is losing his mind with excitement, pumping his fists and cheering about how his plan to make Stardust stronger was a genius move. Seo-eun gives him the most deadpan look imaginable and asks if he seriously finds this entertaining, to which he sheepishly admits, yeah, a little. Seo-eun has finally had enough of his antics. She gets right in his face, telling her she can't stand watching him browse the Stardust fan cafe all day. Egostic tries to play dumb, but she calls him out by his real name, Kim Dain, revealing she knows he runs the Stardust Brigade fan club. She reminds him that he can't hide anything from a master hacker. Egostic is totally busted, trying to downplay his mega fandom as just a small hobby. Seo-eun ignores him and gets down to business, asking what the plan is. He confirms it's not a terror attack or a villain takedown. With a huge, confident smile, Egostic announces their real mission. They're going to recruit a new member for the team. The scene flashes back to a run-down, hilly neighborhood. We meet our new character, a young woman with orange hair named Lee Ha-yul, who is bowing apologetically after bumping into someone. The whole place looks like it hasn't been updated in decades. As Ha-yul walks through the narrow streets, she clutches a small, dark object to her chest. She looks nervous and on edge, her eyes wide with focus. She turns a corner and is immediately confronted by a group of shady-looking thugs who are blocking a staircase. They're all smirking and smoking, clearly waiting for her. A little boy with a cap, her younger brother Lee Chae-hyun, comes running up the stairs to her. She asks if he had fun and immediately notices a scrape on his knee. He admits he fell on his way over. Ha-yul scolds him gently for not being careful, then crouches down. Her hands glow with a soft green light, and she completely heals his injury right on the spot. Chae-hyun is amazed. She pats his head, tells him to go home first, and promises to bring back something tasty to eat. After he leaves, she walks off with a determined look, heading toward the thugs. Ha-yul returns later that night with a bag of tteokbokki, calling out for her brother. But when she opens the door, she finds the gang leader standing over the beaten bodies of his own men. He calls her a little thief, revealing he knew she was hiding something. The gang leader lays out the deal they had. She was allowed to pickpocket in their territory as long as she gave them a cut. He points to a pile of wallets on the floor, furious that she held out on him, and reminds her that he promised to kill her if she ever did. Ha-yul stands her ground, telling the gang to take their stuff and leave her brother alone. The leader just scoffs at her bravery. In a brutal move, one of the thugs grabs her little brother, Chae-hyun, by the hair and slams him around. Ha-yul screams in rage, calling the man a filthy bastard. The leader holds a knife to Chae-hyun's throat, telling Ha-yul that he needs to teach her a lesson. She immediately breaks down, begging for forgiveness, but he says it's too late, and viciously stabs the little boy. The moment the knife hits, a massive shockwave of power erupts from Ha-yul. It's not controlled healing energy. It's a chaotic, violent force that blasts the gang members across the room, slamming them into walls and incapacitating them in an instant. Ha-yul rushes to her brother's side, cradling him in her arms. Egostic's voice narrates over the scene, explaining that in the original timeline, this is the day Chae-hyun dies, causing Ha-yul to become a powerful villain out of grief. He notes that he arrived just in the nick of time. Ha-yul looks down to see her brother is miraculously unharmed, looking up at her in confusion. As Ha-yul processes the impossible situation, Egostic steps out of the shadows. She recognizes him immediately. He calmly introduces himself to both her and Chae-hyun, then declares, "I'm here to take you with me." Egostic, dressed to the nines, strolls out of the shadows and introduces himself to the orange-haired healer Lee Ha-yul and her little bro, Lee Chae-hyun. He just drops the bomb that he's here to take them with him. Ha-yul is immediately on guard, calling him a vicious villain and asking why he'd want them. Egostic plays it cool, telling her she's got it all wrong and that he's actually here to save her. He also points out that the cops are probably on their way, so they should bounce. She is not having it. She is not having it. Ha-yul screams that she'd rather die than go with a bastard like him and lunges forward, ready to throw hands. But before she can do anything, her little brother Chae-hyun grabs her hand and stops her. He's looking at Egostic with pure, unadulterated awe. The little bro absolutely loses his mind, yelling that Egostic is the leader of the Manga squad. Ha-yul is just standing there completely confused, while her brother is basically having a celebrity sighting. A little while later, they're all at the Ego base. Egostic introduces the siblings as their new family members. The little bro is starstruck, pointing out the ego terror beauty, which is probably Seo-eun, who looks less than thrilled. Ha-yul nervously introduces herself and her brother, still trying to process what's happening. She clocks the white-haired dude, Seo-bin, and figures he must be the hacker. Seo-bin just sizes her up, noting that the new healer is a girl. The scene shifts to the lounge, and it's just pure chaos. Some dude is chugging mango juice, and Seo-bin is having a flashback, realizing this new girl reminds him of himself when he first met Egostic. Seo-eun, the hacker girl, immediately starts yelling at the guy for drinking straight from the bottle. Meanwhile, another woman offers Chae-hyun some fruit, and the kid is just living his best life, thanking her enthusiastically. Ha-yul watches her brother happily munching on fruit and seems to have a moment of doubt, but she keeps her thoughts to herself. Egostic tells Seo-eun and Seo-bin to scram so he can have a serious chat with the new recruits. Seo-bin starts mocking him, and Seo-eun has to drag him away. Now it's just Egostic and the siblings. He gets straight to the point, revealing that he knows Ha-yul killed her abusive orphanage director before she ran away. He explains that he didn't just find her by accident, he sought her out on purpose. When she asks why, he tells her it's so she can live a happy life. He clarifies that they won't be living in the underground base, and that he's set up a portal to a main house where they can live and go to school. Ha-yul is completely floored, asking why he's doing all this for them. Egostic gives a sad smile and says it's because he once had a younger sibling around their age. While this heavy conversation is happening, Seo-eun is in the background, fanboying hard and telling Egostic he's re-watched all his attacks. Egostic tells her that living with them will be fun and that they aren't as bad as she thinks. He then leads them down a corridor. He brings them to a massive, glowing blue portal and tells them to follow him inside. The little bro, Seo-eun, doesn't hesitate for a second and dives right into the portal, yelling for his sister to hurry up. Ha-yul panics and calls out his name. Left with no choice, Ha-yul takes a deep breath and steps into the swirling blue energy, following her brother. They emerge on the staircase of a massive, sunlit, and seriously fancy house. Seo-eun is just in awe of the place. Egostic welcomes them to their new home. He tells them he'll take the third floor and they can have 2 rooms on the second. He also promises to cover their tuition because he's rich, and tells Ha-yul she can leave any time if she's not comfortable. Ha-yul has a brutal flashback to the orphanage director abusing her, which seems to seal her decision. Looking at her brother running around happily in the new, safe environment, she finally gives in. She turns to Egostic and sincerely thanks him. He just smiles and says they should all get along. In his head, he's celebrating a successful recruitment mission. Later that night, Egostic is chilling outside when he gets a nagging feeling that he's forgotten something important, but he can't quite put his finger on it. We cut to the blonde heroine, Stardust, who is frantically scrolling through online forums. The entire internet is freaking out about Egostic's 4-day absence. Stardust sighs, staring at her screen, and wondering what on earth her favorite villain is up to. All right, so, boom. The chapter kicks off with a crazy flashback to some high-tech evil lab. A couple of scientists in lab coats are gazing at a project called Behemoth. One of the scientists, a silver-haired dude, is going on about how this project has to be completed for some Dr. Kim Sen-woo. The silver-haired guy goes full villain monologue, saying that once their plan works, South Korea is cooked, and their Hanan group will rule the world. You know, typical Tuesday for a supervillain. Then we cut to the present day in a cozy kitchen. The hacker girl, Seo-eun, is awkwardly trying to help a nice brown-haired woman cook. Seo-eun insists she's more comfortable helping, and the woman is just happy to have her. Our boy Egostic is chilling in the living room, watching a news report about himself. The news is all confused because he paid his former hostages a bunch of money. They even show Seo-eun, the white-haired girl from a past incident, living her best life, which is great PR for him. Egostic snaps himself out of a daze, telling his real identity, Kim Dain, to get it together. He has a quick memory of telling Seo-eun to stop sleeping in the basement now that they have a nice sunny house, but she claps back that he was the one obsessed with the ego base. At breakfast, Egostic is absolutely thrilled they're having meat. Meanwhile, Seo-eun gets all serious in her head, thinking about how she'll have to use her healing powers on him if he ever comes back injured. Later, Egostic is in his room, staring at a calendar, and decides it's time to deal with the black disaster the Hanun group is planning. Just then, the silver-haired girl, Seo-eun, bursts in, calling him Mango Stick and complaining that she found his hiding spot. Seo-eun is bored out of her mind and practically begs him to go do some terrorism. Egostic just casually agrees, which leaves her completely stunned. With a grin, Egostic announces it's time for the Ego Squad to assemble. My man is ready to get some motion. We're now in a meeting with the whole crew. The new healer girl, Ha-yul, being the only normal one here, asks the very logical question of why they're committing terrorism in the first place. Everyone else just stares at her in shock. Egostic starts to give some weird poetic answer about the world's compassion, but Seo-eun immediately tells him to stop. Seo-eun, now calling him Mr., tells him to get to the point. Egostic, a little hurt by the nickname downgrade, turns to Ha-yul and says they do it because they're villains. Ha-yul just accepts this with a simple "I see." Seo-eun takes over the briefing, laying out the rules. It has to be a terrorist act with 0 civilian casualties. It must present a moral dilemma, and it has to involve Stardust, whom she refers to as that bitch. Egostic calls her out for swearing, but she plays it off. Egostic hits the whiteboard to explain the master plan. A giant monster that's weak to water is about to appear and rampage across the country. So their terrorist act will be to blow up the Seoul Bridge, which will conveniently stop the monster. 2 birds, 1 stone. When Seo-eun asks how he knows all this, he just says it's a trade secret. Seo-eun points out that this sounds more like saving the day than terrorism, and that it doesn't seem to be for Stardust. Egostic asks her to stop adding damn to Stardust's name. He then hypes everyone up by reminding them that while they might not have time, they have an insane amount of money. The scene shifts to the Seoul Bridge. Egostic is live streaming, and his fans in the chat are going absolutely wild. Mangostic is back, and the internet is breaking. Floating above the bridge, Egostic officially announces his return as the nation's #1 villain and gets ready to kick things off. He declares that he's here for a bomb threat, naturally, while his fans in the live chat are losing their minds with excitement. A poor driver stuck on the bridge is screaming in terror. Egostic yells for everyone to hold still, announcing that the guests for his game, the people trapped on the bridge, have been chosen. He reveals the rules of his twisted game. He'll give 100,000 won to anyone who sends him their bank account info. However, if over 500,000 people take the money by 7 p.m., he'll blow the bridge to smithereens, along with everyone on it. People all over the city are shown staring at their phones in disbelief. Egostic puts the choice to the entire nation: take the free money or save the bridge. The game has officially begun. So, our boy Egostic is floating over the bridge, talking to his live stream. He gets all smooth and tells Stardust to take the day off, calling her my woman. The chat is absolutely eating it up. But, of course she's not gonna listen. Stardust immediately pulls up looking furious, just as some giant dark object starts falling from the sky. Egostic is completely stunned that she actually showed up. He was just trying to riz her up on stream, but now he's got the nation's #1 hero flying at him full force. And he's just like, huh? Stardust? She comes in so fast she knocks the bomb's detonator right out of his hand. He tries to play it cool, saying, "Long time no see," but Stardust isn't talking. She just gives him this ice-cold death glare, and my man starts to sweat. The silence is deafening. Stardust just keeps staring him down without saying a word, and Egostic is visibly freaking out. He's used to witty banter, not this silent treatment. He has no idea what's going on. The scene cuts to an office break room. A young employee, the intern, excitedly shows his boss, the chief, the live stream. The chief reads the rules. People can claim 100,000 won, but if more than 500,000 people do it, the bridge and everyone on it are cooked. The chief scoffs, saying only an idiot would fall for that. The intern immediately raises his hand and admits he already took the money. The chief puts on a big show of being angry and yells at him for being so irresponsible. But it was all an act. The chief pulls out his own phone and reveals he claimed the money the second the stream started. They have a good laugh about it, convinced there's no way 500,000 people will actually do it, and plan to use their free cash for a company dinner. Then we cut to a sweet-looking mom cooking at home. She gets a call from her son, who is obviously our boy Egostic, using his real identity. He asks for her bank account number, and she, being a confused but loving mom, gives it to him. A second later, she gets a notification that 100,000 won has been deposited from the Ego Squad. Back on the bridge, Egostic has a brief, sad-looking flashback to a really cold day, which seems to be connected to the Ego Squad name he just used. Egostic hiding on a rooftop, watching Stardust from afar. She's standing on the bridge, looking absolutely lethal. He thinks to himself that her eyes are like knives and that she's just waiting for him to make one wrong move. He starts monologuing in his head, wondering why Stardust is way angrier than usual. He guesses that the Soul Bridge must have some secret personal meaning for her that wasn't in the original story he read. He feels a little guilty, but tells himself it's necessary to blow up the bridge to save her from the future black disaster, which she isn't strong enough to beat yet. He thinks back to the original comic, remembering the Black Disaster as the event that turned the story from a light-hearted hero comic into something much darker. Snapping back to reality, he decides to check the progress of his money giveaway and is absolutely shocked by what he sees. His screen shows that 450,000 people have already claimed the money, and there are still 3 hours to go. He can't believe how greedy everyone is being. He gets back on his live stream and with a straight face tells the nation he has faith in them and that he knows none of them would stoop so low as to take the money. The live chat is full of people agreeing with him, all of them lying. Egostic decides it's time to interview the guests trapped on the bridge. He walks up to a car, secretly praying the person inside isn't a total weirdo, and cheerfully asks him to introduce himself. The man, a calm-looking dude named Choi Young-jin, introduces himself without a hint of fear. Egostic is completely thrown off. He asks the guy if he isn't scared for his life. Mr. Choi just starts laughing. He says he's not scared at all because he has complete faith that his fellow Koreans will do the right thing and not take the money. He ends his interview with a patriotic cheer for the country, leaving Egostic totally flustered. Stardust confronts him again, demanding to know what he's planning. Egostic, completely drained from dealing with the super wholesome hostage, just sighs and walks off to find someone else to interview, hoping for a normal reaction this time. He does not get a normal reaction. The next car is filled with his own screaming fangirls. They're all freaking out about how handsome he is in person. They're his biggest fans, but are also debating whether he's actually going to kill them. The chaos gives Egostic a massive headache. He tries to escape, but the fangirls stop him. They hold out a tablet and a pen, demanding he give them an autograph before he continues his terrorist plot. Defeated, he actually signs it for the 400,000 won they all claimed from his event. Finally, the scene cuts to 7 p.m. The deadline has arrived. Egostic, surrounded by his camera drones, addresses the entire nation. He announces that the game is over, and it's time to reveal the final results. So, our boy Egostic is back on the air, floating over the bridge. He dramatically announces that it's time to reveal the results of his little nationwide game. 100,000 won versus the bridge. The live chat is absolutely popping off, with people joking that there's no way 500,000 people took the money, and begging not to let the wholesome hostage guy, Mr. Choi, down. Egostic hypes it up, yelling that the results are in. Then he drops the bomb. The final count isn't 500,000. It's 1,250,000 people. The nation chose the cash. The greed was off the charts, and Egostic looks completely blown away by the result. With a theatrical, evil smile, he calls the citizens of Korea unbelievable and says he has one final firework display as a gift for all their selfish souls. And then, bam! The entire bridge just explodes in a massive fireball. Stardust is watching in horror, realizing the bastard actually did it. Egostic signs off, and the live chat instantly panics, with users logging off left and right as they realize people just died. But hold up, plot twist. We see Egostic floating high above the chaos, totally exhausted. He mutters to himself that he's at his limit, and was just planning to watch Stardust save everyone before dipping out. As he's watching her work, he spots one piece of falling debris with a car on it that she's not going to be able to catch in time. He curses, realizing he has to step in. Stardust is giving it her all, but she gets knocked back by an explosion. Just as she's falling, Egostic screams and dives in to intervene. He manages to save the last car, getting everyone to safety. But in the process, he gets caught in an explosion himself and starts falling from the sky. We get a super intense flashback. A younger Egostic, whose name is apparently Dain, is lying on the ground, bleeding out. A white-haired girl and a brown-haired girl are screaming his name in absolute terror. The flashback continues in a high-tech medical facility. Dain is unconscious inside a glowing blue healing pod while the two girls watch over him, begging him to wake up. The scene shifts to one of the girls from the flashback, now alone and looking somber in a quiet room. We cut to the present day, but now we're with Stardust. She's on a balcony overlooking the city at night, holding a heavily redacted file about Egostic, wondering who he really is. She remembers a past warning from him. He told her to never just jump into the public eye, because the moment she does, her life will become a living hell. She thinks back to a previous terror attack at an airport. He had pushed her, telling her she could do it and that she needed to step forward and save everyone. Which is just wild, because he's the one who put them in danger in the first place. Stardust is completely torn up inside. She has a mountain of questions for him. Is he really a villain? Is he truly evil? She just wants to know who he really is. She admits to herself that when she saw him on the bridge, she was overwhelmed by some strange emotion and couldn't get a single word out. We see her memory of the bridge rescue. She was desperately trying to reach a falling car, straining with all her might. She remembers feeling the speed of the falling debris suddenly drop. It was Egostic, using his powers to slow it down just enough for her to make the save. Back on the ground, the rescued citizens are safe, but are complaining about how cruel Egostic was for actually trying to kill them. Stardust stands alone, watching them. She stands on the shore, looking out at the wreckage of the bridge, lost in thought. Later, back on her balcony, she's still thinking about Egostic, acknowledging that he's a terrorist who somehow has never had a single casualty. The blue-haired woman calls Stardust by her real name, Shin Haru, and asks why she's sitting all alone, holding out a drink and what looks like a recording device. All right, so we open on some crazy action. Our boy Egostic, the man in the top hat, is down below cooking up some purple energy balls, while some poor blonde dude is taking a nosedive from the sky. It's pure chaos, setting the stage for some serious hero work. The scene cuts to Stardust, whose real name is Shin Haru, chilling on a balcony at night, deep in her feels about Egostic. Suddenly, her friend, a blue-haired woman named Lee Seola, hero name Icicle, pops up with drinks, asking why she's all alone. Seola mentions she heard Egostic's latest stunt was another one of his zero-casualty specials. Seola gives a worried Haru a big hug, telling her that of course she'd come, because they're friends. Haru looks genuinely relieved to have her there. It's a sweet moment between the two heroes. After cracking open some drinks, Seola is loving the vibe, just chilling and looking at the Seoul skyline. But then she notices Haru is still staring at a stack of work files. She immediately calls her out, asking if this is about Egostic again, and Haru admits that yeah, it totally is. Seola tells her to forget about that guy, even joking that the geezer, some higher up probably, is secretly happy the crime rate has dropped because of Egostic's antics. She points out that his latest attack didn't even seem like he was trying to mess with Stardust. But Haru looks serious and says she has something important to tell her. And here's the bombshell. Haru looks Seola dead in the eye and says that from her perspective, Egostic might not actually be a bad person. Seola is completely shook, literally dropping her drink in surprise. Bam! We get a massive flashback. We're now with a new character, an orange-haired girl named Haeyul. She's walking down a hallway towards a room where Dain, our boy Egostic, is lying unconscious in a glowing blue healing pod. Haeyul is having a total crisis of conscience. She's wondering if she should really step in and help him. She's worried that even if he seems like a good guy now, he might end up just like all the other scumbags who tried to exploit her powers in the past. The flashback gets deeper. We see the moment Dain saved her, even though he didn't know who she was. He was just kind, no strings attached. Now he's dying right in front of her, and she's torn up with guilt for not having the courage to save him sooner, terrified he'd turn out like the rest. But she makes a decision. Wiping away her tears, Haeyul declares that she'll be brave this time. She walks up to the dying Dain and places her hands on his wound, channeling a green, glowing healing energy into him. The scene shifts to the present. Right after the healing, Dain is awake and checking the bandage on his chest. He's alive. He looks over at Haeyul and realizes with a grin that he finally managed to recruit a healer for his team. Haeyul is so overwhelmed with emotion she can barely speak. Dain just gives her a warm, genuine smile and thanks her for saving his life. It's a super wholesome moment, solidifying their new partnership. We snap back to the present with Stardust and Icicle. Haru is laying out all the evidence for her wild theory. Egostic's attacks always having zero casualties. That mysterious phone call only he could have known about during the plane incident. And him secretly saving that SUV during the bridge explosion. Seola absolutely loses it. She can't believe that her friend, the A-rank hero Stardust, is buying into the internet conspiracy theory that Egostic is some secret dark hero. She even jokingly asks for Haru's username on the Egostic fan cafe. Haru gets flustered and says it's not about believing it, it just doesn't feel like a theory anymore. Sola calms down and admits that while some things don't add up, Egostic is still a villain who's crossing lines. But Haru is convinced he's working towards something much bigger. Seo-eun, trying to change the subject, asks her workaholic friend if she's met any cute guys lately. But Haru just deadpans that someone who's never dated wouldn't know how. This sets Seo-eun off, who defensively claims her strict family is the reason she's single, not because she can't get a date. Haru just laughs, telling her she's cute when she's flustered, and the two friends banter on the balcony. And now for a hard cut to our new villain. We see an old dude with gray hair, Dr. Kim San-woo, stepping out of a limo at some high-tech facility. The guy is clearly a big deal, with bodyguards and assistants swarming him. A researcher greets the doctor, who immediately cuts him off and demands a progress report. The researcher says their project is 56% complete and should be done by next September. But Dr. Kim explodes in anger, yelling that it's way too slow and demanding it be finished by winter. This guy has zero chill. In his car, Dr. Kim gets a classic villain monologue moment. He smirks to himself and declares that before winter ends, the entire country will kneel before him. So yeah, he's definitely the new big bad on the block. The final scene cuts back to our boy Dain, Egostic, chilling on the couch with the white-haired girl from the very first flashback. They're watching the news report about Dr. Kim's release. Dain gets a huge, excited grin on his face and yells, "All right, the players are stepping onto the field." The white-haired girl just gives him side-eye, completely unimpressed with his dramatic flair. It's clear this was all part of his master plan. All right, so we cut to the LS corporate building, and it's snowing for the first time. Our boy Dain, aka Ego Mystic, is acting like a 5-year-old who just saw snow for the first time, arms in the air, screaming about how exciting it is. Meanwhile, Seo-eun, the white-haired girl, is having none of his energy and immediately tries to stomp him into the fresh powder. The crew is chilling outside with hot drinks. The woman in the beige coat and Hae-yul, the orange-haired healer, are just enjoying the peaceful vibe. But Dain, ever the drama queen, starts yelling at Seo-eun for ruining the perfect, untouched snow with her footprints. This, of course, leads to them squaring up for an epic snowball fight. The battle begins. Dain, in full egostandic mode, dramatically announces his special move, Ego Blast, which is basically just him yeeting a ton of snowballs at once. Seo-eun is not impressed and immediately calls him out for being a total cheater. It looks like Dain is cooked, and he throws his hands up in surrender. But psych! It's a classic misdirection. He was just baiting them in so he could launch a surprise attack directly at Seo-eun. After the intense battle, Dain declares that he's starving and it's time for snacks. The whole crew is immediately on board, their short-lived war forgotten in the face of food. They're all munching on chocolate chip cookies. Out of nowhere, Seo-eun, who apparently packed a snowball with ice and water, absolutely domes him with it. The impact sends Dain flying dramatically. She instantly panics, asking if she hit him too hard. Everyone rushes over to Dain's body. The boy in the dark coat is checking on him, and Seo-eun is freaking out, thinking they actually killed him. But Hae-yul, who's getting wise to his antics, points out that he's smiling and is 100% faking it. We get a little narration from Dain. He explains that for the last 3 months they've just been chilling and enjoying the winter. He thought about pulling another villain stunt, but decided against it because Stardust is already as strong as she was supposed to be 3 years later in the original timeline. So, he's just letting her cook. Dain's narration continues. He notes that the biggest change is that Hae-yul is finally smiling and seems to have warmed up to them. He also mentions that public opinion on Egostic has completely cratered after the bridge incident, with everyone blaming him for the chaos. He's totally fine with it, though, since being the bad guy was the whole point. Now, all that's left is to wait for something he calls the Black Disaster. Back in the present, the snowball fight shenanigans continue. Seo-eun gets her revenge, tackling Dain and pinning him to the ground, triumphantly declaring her victory. The crew is freezing and hungry. The woman in the beige coat suggests a barbecue for dinner, and everyone loves the idea. Hae-yul reminds them to go grab another member of their team, Seo-eun, before they head inside. Bam! Hard cut to a vision of absolute hell. We see the old villain, Dr. Kim, having a complete meltdown in a fiery, destroyed landscape. His entire life's research is literally blowing up in his face. His subordinate tries to drag him to safety, but the doctor is screaming, refusing to abandon his work as a horrifying, multi-mouthed monster emerges. The subordinate is still trying to evacuate the doctor, who is now staring in horror. Dr. Kim can't believe it. His prototype, Test Subject 1, which he calls Behemoth, has somehow gained self-awareness and gone completely rogue. So, yeah, he basically created his own apocalypse. We snap to the present day in the city. Everything seems normal for a second, but then chaos erupts. We see Stardust, our blonde hero, blasting into action as the disaster begins. Stardust is in a high-rise office with the president of the Hero Association. The president is losing his mind, pointing out the window and demanding to know what's going on. A monstrous creature is descending upon the city. The scene shifts to the streets, showing pure chaos. The monster is tearing through the city, destroying cars and buildings as terrified civilians run for their lives. Back in the office, the president is speechless. Stardust, ever the hero, says she's heading out immediately. The president tries to stop her, arguing that the monster is too big for her to handle alone. Stardust claps back with an all-time line, telling him he can sit there with his popcorn while she goes to work. Stardust stands at the massive window, staring down the colossal threat. The sheer scale of the monster and the incoming destruction is laid bare. The president, clearly salty about the popcorn comment, coldly tells Stardust he wants a full report on his desk by tomorrow. Stardust, realizing she might have crossed a line with her boss, sheepishly apologizes. All right, hard cut from the big monster fight. We're now outside a slick-looking apartment building at night. The vibe is way calmer, meaning some time has definitely passed since the city was getting wrecked. Inside, our girl Stardust is chilling at her computer, scrolling through what looks like an online forum. The internet is going absolutely nuts, with everyone suddenly glazing Egostic. The comments are all like, how could anyone still think he's a villain? And destroying the bridge was all part of his master plan. Stardust is munching on some snacks, looking completely stunned. She's putting the pieces together and realizes that if Egostic hadn't taken out the Soul Bridge when he did, no hero in the country would have been strong enough to stop that behemoth monster. The villain accidentally saved everyone. This new reality is clearly messing with her head. We see her out for a night run, trying to process everything. She's thinking that this just can't be right. As she's running, she reaffirms her identity. She tells herself that he's the villain and she's the hero, and that she's the one who is supposed to do the protecting. You can tell she's trying to convince herself as much as anyone else. Meanwhile, we cut to Egostic's crew having a barbecue. They're all gathered around a TV watching the news, which is reporting that the whole black disaster was caused by a mega corporation called the Hanan Group. The company has totally collapsed, and the lead scientist, Dr. Kim, has vanished. Egostic just casually remarks that this is how it all turned out. The crew is absolutely fuming. Haeyul, the orange-haired girl, says they got what they deserved. The woman in the beige coat and Seo-eun, the white-haired girl, are on another level of rage, talking about hunting down every last person from the company and making them pay. Egostic, ever the cool-headed leader, tells them not to worry. He promises that the runaway scientists will crawl out of their holes soon enough, and then tells everyone to gather around because he's got a plan. And what a plan it is. He rolls out a massive blueprint of the Hanan Group's secret underground lab. The crew is shocked, asking what the hell is down there. Egostic goes into full presentation mode. He explains that the lab holds the ultimate weapon, a life form made from some miracle material that can even block Shadow Walker's powers and survive a nuke. He says the behemoth monster was just a prototype for this thing. The crew's reaction is priceless. Instead of being hyped, they're horrified. Seo-eun and the beige-coated woman immediately start roasting him, asking if he's ready to get his body wrecked again, and suggesting he get a few more holes in his stomach. They literally start trying to beat him up, yelling at him for being so reckless. Cut to the Hero Association headquarters, and guess what? They're totally following up on the lab. An official is briefing a team, revealing that they've detected multiple life signs down there. We see Shadow Walker, who reports that he tried to scout it out, but some weird energy field blocked his powers. The official turns to Stardust and asks if she's still willing to go in alone, without support. She gives a firm yes. The mission to explore the Hanan Group's underground lab is officially approved. We see Stardust flying down into the massive crater, left by the disaster. At the bottom, she sees the entrance to the lab, but someone in a dark cloak is already standing there. It's Egostic, of course. He's on a call with his team, who are monitoring him from their base. Seo-eun immediately starts teasing him about being scared, but he brushes it off, saying a man like him isn't afraid of a few monsters. Just as he's about to go in, he pulls the ultimate Egostic move. He starts a live stream for the entire world to see, announcing that he's about to explore the Hanan Group's secret lab to uncover their crimes. Back at the Hero Association, they realize they've lost Stardust's signal just as Egostic's stream goes live. An association member is freaking out, but the president is living for the drama. He tells his assistant to go get popcorn, half caramel and half salt, because this is about to be peak entertainment. Egostic enters the creepy, abandoned lab, giving his online audience a running commentary. The chat is blowing up with fans telling him to be careful. He boasts that he's not scared of some old experiment traces. Famous last words. He gets jump-scared by a cat that pops out of nowhere. As he's breathing a sigh of relief and wondering what a cat is doing there, he senses something is very, very wrong. Suddenly, a horrifying, shadowy monster with multiple glowing red eyes materializes out of the darkness right in front of him. The creature lunges, and Egostic lets out a series of high-pitched screams while instinctively summoning his glowing blue guns to defend himself. After the initial attack, Egostic looks up from the chaos, only to see Stardust standing a short distance away, having just arrived to witness him screaming like a little kid. The scene opens with our boy Egostic having a full-blown internal meltdown. He's screaming to himself about how he should have just stayed home and is regretting his life choices, whining that he wants a power-up too. Back in the fight, he's still screaming his head off, yelling that he should have listened to Seo-eun, his white-haired crewmate. But then, something snaps. He decides that since he's already here, he's absolutely going to get his hands on the ultimate weapon, Behemoth, before he leaves. He locks in, summoning his glowing blue guns to blast the shadowy monster. With a final epic roar, Egostic unleashes a massive attack, determined to wipe the creature off the map. The blast is so powerful that the entire chamber starts to collapse. Debris rains down from the ceiling as the structure gives way around him. Egostic plummets through the collapsing floor into a deeper, darker level of the lab. He realizes he dropped his livestream camera and his guns in the chaos. He tries to contact his team, calling out for Seo-eun through his earpiece. The signal is dead. He's completely alone and starts to get genuinely spooked. Just then, a massive explosion of golden energy erupts nearby, blowing him off his feet. As the dust settles, he looks up and sees the source of the explosion. Stardust, our blonde hero, standing there looking just as surprised to see him. They both just stare at each other, completely baffled. The two immediately start questioning each other's presence. Stardust points out that, as a hero, it's her job to be there, cleaning up the mess. Egostic can't really argue with that. Stardust then gets a dangerous-looking smile and says his timing is perfect. Stardust powers up, her body glowing with golden energy. She tells him that if he surrenders quietly, she'll go easy on him. Egostic, meanwhile, is having an internal crisis, simultaneously terrified for his life and absolutely simping because his favorite hero is smiling at him. A full-on brawl breaks out. Stardust lunges at him, but Egostic dodges and counters with a surprisingly effective kick. Their powers clash in a massive explosion of gold and purple light as he desperately screams for her to stop. Egostic throws his hands up and tries to negotiate. He acknowledges that he's a villain in her eyes, but pleads for a temporary truce, pointing out that they're in an unknown, dangerous facility. He proposes they team up until they figure out what's going on. When Stardust demands to know why he's there, he smoothly claims it's for intellectual curiosity. After a tense moment, she shocks him by agreeing to the alliance. Stardust explains that she was having trouble fighting the monsters alone, so he can basically act as her backup. Egostic is floored that his bluff actually worked. In her own head, Stardust thinks this is the perfect opportunity to keep him close and finally get some answers about who he really is. We see a quick, hilarious fantasy sequence of how Egostic imagines this team-up will go, Stardust yelling at him like a drill sergeant while he cowers and runs away in fear. Back in reality, Egostic is on Cloud 9. Despite the danger, he's internally gushing about how much he loves being on an adventure with Stardust. Stardust takes the lead, navigating the dark corridors with surprising ease. Egostic watches her, impressed, and internally notes how much her extrasensory perception must have developed. They arrive at a heavy door labeled Superpower Suppression Room. Without missing a beat, Stardust points at the door and orders Egostic to go in first. He tries to play it cool, but internally he's complaining about being treated like a guinea pig. Egostic steps inside the room, which is bathed in an eerie red light. He immediately confirms that his telekinesis and teleportation abilities are completely gone. Stardust enters and realizes her powers are also nullified. While Egostic is marveling at the technology, Stardust just walks over to a control panel and smashes it with her bare fists. Egostic is simultaneously terrified and incredibly impressed by her raw strength. His fanboying is cut short when a massive steel door slams shut behind them, trapping them inside. The two are now locked in a sealed room with no way out and, more importantly, no superpowers. Egostic begins to panic, not because he's trapped with his arch-nemesis, but because he's trapped alone with a girl. All right, so get this. Our hero, Stardust, is going full power mode, trying to bust down this massive blast door. But Top Hat Guy, the villain, is just chillin', telling her it's pointless. He points over to a timer, basically telling her to look at the facts. The villain explains that the door is on a 3-hour lockdown, so she should just save her energy. He's acting like they're just waiting for a bus together. Stardust is obviously frustrated, but he's completely unfazed. He keeps poking at her, calling her stubborn, and reminding her that her powers are currently on the fritz. He's kneeling down, acting all dramatic, while she's just standing there, completely powerless and pissed off. Then, in the most galaxy brain move I've ever seen, Top Hat Guy offers her his hand to help her up. Stardust is completely baffled, like, is this dude for real? The riz is off the charts. He actually helps her up, and she's blushing, but trying to play it cool. Telling him she's not going to say thank you. He just smirks and says it sounds like a thank you to him. She tries to throw a punch, but he just calmly tells her to be careful with her hand. The sheer audacity of this man. Top Hat Guy then announces he's going to lie down for a nap because they have 3 hours to kill. A nap in front of the hero he's captured. He even has the nerve to tell Stardust she should get some rest too. But hold up, it's a fake-out. He's just pretending to rest. In his head, he's thinking there's no way he can actually sleep because even without her powers, Stardust is strong enough to fold most guys. My man is actually terrified of her. After some time passes, they're both looking exhausted, and he mentions the oxygen feels thin. Suddenly, Stardust, looking completely drained, brings up the Soul Bridge incident out of nowhere. The plot is thickening. She asks him if the car that crashed on the bridge was his. You can see the pure panic in his eyes. He's thinking to himself, oh crap, she noticed. He is absolutely cooked. She presses him, asking if he's the one who stopped the car. He tries to dodge the question with some goofy, over-the-top villain monologue about how he only knows how to charge ahead. Stardust is just looking at him, completely confused by his nonsense. Stardust isn't letting up. She asks why he told her to save that airplane. This sends Top Hat Guy into a full-blown theatrical rant about how he's the villain and she's the hero, and her existence completes his. It's the most dramatic, over-the-top glazing you've ever seen. He tries to blame his outburst on the lack of oxygen, but Stardust is locked in. She asks if he knew beforehand that the Soul Bridge would collapse, and that a monster would appear. He tries to laugh it off, asking if she believes in some half-baked internet conspiracy theory. Top Hat Guy has a complete internal meltdown. He realizes she's not just suspicious, she's starting to doubt if he's even a real villain. So he decides his only move is a massive bluff. He starts laughing like a maniac and admits he knew everything, then hits her with the "so what are you going to do about it" strategy. When she asks how he knew, he just deadpans, hacking. He doubles down, claiming it's no big deal for someone who controls all of South Korea's computer networks to know a little classified info. But Stardust still looks skeptical. She finally hits him with the ultimate question. Why does he always prevent civilian casualties if he's supposed to be a villain? His excuse is legendary. He starts screaming that it's because he hates people stealing his spotlight, and that he does everything for attention. It's the most pathetic, unbelievable excuse ever, and he's selling it with his whole chest. Stardust just towers over him, staring him down with glowing blue eyes. She's not buying a single word of his ridiculous act. The power dynamic has completely flipped, and Top Hat Guy looks like he's about to have a heart attack. He knows he's been found out. So, the standoff is still going. Stardust is just staring down Top Hat Guy with her glowing blue eyes, not buying his villain act for a second. He finally cracks, looking super pissed, and just yells at her to move. Right on cue, the 3-hour lockdown timer hits 0. The blast door is officially open for business. It's go time. The second the door unlocks, Top Hat Guy flips a switch. He's all business, telling Stardust to get moving, and she's immediately on board. They sprint out of the room together like they're buddy cops escaping a disaster movie. They're now in some kind of high-tech underground lab. Top Hat Guy checks a computer console and is completely shocked. He realizes the monster they're hunting has somehow evolved and learned how to teleport. The man is flabbergasted by the new patch update. They follow the trail to a massive, shattered containment tube. A system voice announces it as Behemoth Prototype 0. Stardust confirms this is where that black disaster monster escaped from. Top Hat Guy, trying to act cool, adjusts his hat and suggests their little field trip is probably over. But Stardust is locked in. She points out that if this was just a prototype, then the real finished version must be somewhere else in the facility. Top Hat Guy is internally freaking out, amazed by her big brain hero instincts. Stardust suggests they check one direction, but Top Hat Guy, in a massive power move, just says, "No, we're going this way," and walks in the complete opposite direction without even looking back. And what do you know? The man was right. He leads them to an even bigger chamber, containing the real Behemoth, a giant tentacle monster floating in a green tank. But as he's about to give a villain speech, Stardust just wanders off to look at some computers, leaving him whining to himself about how she's leaving him all alone with the monster. This sends Top Hat Guy into a full-blown identity crisis. He's thinking about how his whole plan was to act like a villain, but she trusts him so much she's literally turning her back on him. His villain pride is in shambles. So he decides he has to do something drastic. He starts screaming that he'll show her what a real villain is, and begins summoning a massive amount of dark energy. This is not going to end well. Stardust turns around, completely baffled, and asks him what he's doing. With the most evil smirk he can muster, Top Hat Guy announces that this is a betrayal, as he unleashes his power on the Behemoth's containment tank. Stardust is absolutely furious. Top Hat Guy starts rambling about how, in the original story, a different villain used Behemoth to fight her, and now he's going to do the same thing. My man is trying to force a canon event. He fully commits to the bit, wrapping the giant monster in his dark energy and preparing to unleash it. The ultimate heel turn is in progress. Stardust has had enough. She screams that she's going to beat him within an inch of her life and charges straight at him. The team-up is officially over. It's fight night. They immediately clash, his dark, monster-infused power against her raw strength. He summons a giant, bandaged fist from the Behemoth and slams it down on her. The impact is massive, shaking the entire chamber. Top Hat Guy has a completely unhinged grin on his face, clearly enjoying his villain roleplay a little too much. The two of them are trading blows at lightning speed, lighting up the whole room with her golden hero aura and his chaotic purple energy. The lab is getting absolutely demolished in the crossfire. Top Hat Guy is laughing like a complete maniac, taunting her and yelling that her attacks are going to bring the whole ceiling down on both of them. Covered in dust from the collapsing facility, Stardust screams at him to fight her fairly. Top Hat Guy hits back with the coldest line imaginable, asking when villains ever fight fair, and reminding her that he's the one who just stabbed her in the back. Their powers collide in one final, cataclysmic explosion that completely vaporizes the center of the chamber. Standing in the wreckage, Top Hat Guy gives her a lecture, saying this is what a true villain is, someone who strikes the very instant you let your guard down. He is trying so hard to sell this performance. But the fight has gone too far. The entire structure is coming down around them. Top Hat Guy is internally panicking, realizing the situation is too chaotic. And he can't find a safe moment to teleport them both out. He thinks they're cooked. Just as a gigantic chunk of the ceiling is about to crush Stardust, Top Hat Guy shoves her out of the way at the last second, taking the full impact himself. She watches in horror, screaming his name, as he mutters something about her being the light, before being buried. The scene cuts to a fancy apartment. A girl named Seo-eun and her friend are complaining about a guy who always vanishes on them. Just as Seo-eun is getting really worried, the front door bursts open. It's Top Hat Guy, or rather, the guy underneath the mask. He stumbles in, critically injured and bleeding everywhere, before collapsing on the floor. The two girls are frozen in absolute shock. Panic erupts. The friend runs for a first aid kit while Seo-eun fumbles with her phone, trying to call 911. She rushes to her brother's side. That's right, he's her brother, and tries to wake him up. Just then, an orange-haired girl appears and calmly tells her to move aside. This new girl is a healer. She immediately gets to work, channeling green energy from her hands to mend his life-threatening injuries. Back in the destroyed lab, Stardust is alone in the ruins. She's kneeling by a pool of Top Hat Guy's blood, holding a torn, blood-soaked piece of his suit. She is utterly confused, wondering why the villain who tried so hard to prove he was evil would sacrifice his own life to save hers. So, we cut to Top Hat Guy's house, and the man is absolutely cooked. He's in handcuffs, and his friend Subin is trying to spoon-feed him. Our boy is begging, pleading to be allowed to feed himself, trying to hold on to the last shred of his dignity. The healer girl, Hayul, is about to leave after patching him up. Top Hat Guy, still handcuffed and being fed, dramatically calls out to thank her. The scene shifts to the front of a school. Hayul is emotional, apologizing for hiding her powers and thanking Top Hat Guy for letting her go back to school. He's super grateful for her healing him. His sister Seo-eun also wishes her a good day as she heads off. Back in the living room, the sister is fuming, saying if her brother ever tries to pull a stunt like that again, she's gonna lay him out. She then notices he brought something back from the lab. A weird, heavy, dark ball. Top Hat Guy explains it's just an acupressure tool. But as his sister is looking at it, he grabs her hands and, with a psycho grin, says, "Awaken, Behemoth." He's activating the monster's core. The handcuffs he's wearing are just lying on the floor, completely useless. The man could have escaped at any time. Red tentacle energy erupts from the core, grabbing the sister and her friend and hoisting them into the air outside the apartment building. The sister is screaming that she's sorry and won't touch his villain's stuff again, while he just calmly asks if she's sure she won't do it again. Absolute menace. The scene cuts to Stardust's bedroom. She's having a full-on nightmare, reliving the moment Top Hat Guy unleashed the behemoth. She wakes up in a sweat, clutching her chest and staring out the window, clearly worried and wondering if he's actually okay. A caption hits us with a 1 month later time skip. We're at a massive, fancy high school campus. Inside a classroom, Stardust, now going by Haru in her civilian life, is spacing out. Her friend asks her what's wrong, but Haru just brushes it off. Her friend keeps pressing her, so Haru finally asks a super random hypothetical question. What would it mean if a villain saved a hero? Her friend is confused, but Haru quickly backtracks, pretending she just got too invested in a novel she was reading. Her friend gets excited, saying she's also hooked on a novel that sounds similar, and pulls out her phone to show Haru. On the phone screen is the cover of a fan novel titled The Forbidden Love of Villain Egostic and Hero Stardust. Haru is so shocked she slams her friend's head onto the desk. While her friend is reeling, Haru stares out the window, lost in thought. She tells herself there's no way that thick-skinned jerk actually died, and that he's probably shamelessly alive somewhere, already planning his next attack. We cut back to Top Hat Guy, who is chilling in his backyard, being fed an apple by his sister. He casually announces that he's taking a break from terrorism for a while, and his sister is overjoyed. She asks if he's serious, and he confirms he's going to rest. She begs him to just quit for good, but he says if he doesn't do it, someone else will have to take over. His sister is confused, asking what he means by someone else. Top Hat Guy gets serious, explaining that he can't be the main villain forever, because he's the strongest on their team, and that's a problem. He says Stardust is getting way too powerful, easily blocking the behemoth. He declares that they need a strong new member for the next ordeal, and that he's going to prepare this new person specifically for Stardust to fight. The scene shifts to a cafe. A new character, an orange-haired woman named Choi Se-hee, is working when a guy with glasses tries to confess his love to her with a giant bouquet of flowers. Se-hee's friendly smile instantly vanishes. With a terrifying look on her face, she tells the customer to get lost, muttering about how stressed she is and how she's not someone to be messed with. The guy runs off crying. In the background, Top Hat Guy is sitting at a table, laughing his head off at the scene. Suddenly, Top Hat Guy seems to zone out, as if he fell asleep for a second. He sees a vision of Se-hee unleashing a massive amount of electrical power. Later, Se-hee is walking home through a dark alley, complaining about her stressful life. Thinking she's alone, she lets her guard down and starts crackling with electricity. Just as she's powering up, Top Hat Guy appears out of nowhere. He calls her beautiful and says he's been looking for someone like her. He then extends a hand and gives her a job offer. Use her powers to help him with his terrorism. Se-hee is shocked and calls him a crazy bastard, asking if he thinks every person with powers is a villain. In a total power move, Top Hat Guy just tells her to go ahead and shoot him, challenging her to show him how strong she really is.